Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Peter McLean, and I'm the CEO of Bicycle New South Wales. And it's our pleasure today to be able to bring you, everyone, some information on insurances and what to do in the unlikely event of being directly or indirectly involved in an accident. We're really pleased today to have our exclusive compensation legal partner with us to be the experts of the day today and tell us all about the details surrounding that. With us today is Leigh Davidson, the principal solicitor at Advantage Legal. Leigh's got extensive experience working with compensation law firms, including those some listed on the ASX, and he's committed to improving the way compensation schemes operate and function in New South Wales. He's also really passionate about supporting, assisting and helping those that have been involved indirectly or directly in an accident. Like I mentioned, we are recording this webinar today so that we can share it with those who haven't been able to join us here today. And Leigh, you've also got a quick disclaimer to make as well.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Look, everyone, every accident circumstance is different. So what we're discussing today is just really, I suppose, a bit of a general overview on what to do after a motor vehicle accident in New South Wales specifically. So what we're trying to do is, give some educative or informative information. Unfortunately, we can't give actual legal advice in the webinar because every circumstance is different. So please don't rely on anything that's said today as legal advice. I also need to sort of reinforce that the laws in New South Wales are different to other states. So what we're talking about here is New South Wales. So there would be some commonalities with other states, but just keep in mind that everything differs from state to state. If, however, you did want to have a chat afterwards, that you thought something like this relates to your personal circumstances, you can jump onto our website, book an appointment. It's advantagelegal.com.au. We do a free consultation, so please get in touch. Other than that, over to you, Peter. Thanks.
Thanks, Leigh. And so today's format, it's a very simple Q&A format. We've got a few introductory questions for Leigh and then a few more detailed ones as well. But the most important part, of course, is the questions at the end as well, where you get to ask questions from your own points of view or things that you've always been wanting to learn more about. So to do that, if those that aren't familiar with the chat function in Zoom, it's at the bottom of your screen. If you hover your mouse over the chat icon, it'll open up a window on your right-hand side of your screen, and in the message area at the bottom right of the window is you can write your question in the message, hit enter, and then that will be shared with everyone. And we can obviously ask those questions and discuss it in a little bit more detail at the end. So you can do that now if you've already got a question. We've had a couple emailed into us as well, so we've got a few already, but please do that now or during the course of the Q&A that we're about to commence. So to start with though, Leigh, tell us a little bit of a summary of what Advantage Legal does in the legal and compensation law space.
Yeah, sure. Look, we're lawyers that sort of specialise in New South Wales compensation law. We only act for injured people. So, but most importantly, we consider ourselves experts in cycling and motor accident injuries. We've dealt with hundreds of such claims throughout our careers, my business partner and I, and the people at Advantage Legal. So, and we're very much involved in shaping the future of compensation schemes. We're heavily involved with the Law Society, statutory regulators, and look, even since partnering with Bicycle New South Wales, we do our utmost to really help with policy and advocacy positioning, to assist with the education of members and also to advance the positioning of cyclists in New South Wales. So it's definitely something we're very passionate about.
Thanks, Leigh. And I guess there's lots of compensation law firms out there, little, big, and everything in between. How does Advantage Legal differ from other compensation law firms, and what's your real point of difference?
Look, I think like I said, we're definitely very active in the cycling space. So cycling accidents are very complex. There's many different points of view. Quite often you need to call on a lawyer to get an accident reconstruction, or, just ultimately to make sure that what you're doing with your claim after being involved in an accident is right. Secondly, both of the practice principals, Anna Yaglic and myself, we've worked as personal injury lawyers, we've worked inside insurance companies, we've worked as assessors within the schemes that determine disputes. We understand all of the aspects of how a compensation dispute is run, and most importantly, from the different points of view. So we consider it beneficial for our clients, because at the end of the day, it allows us to be, 2 steps ahead of where I suppose our opposition is. Most compensation law firms will promise you a large payout. At times you'll sign up and you'll barely hear from them, ultimately being a file on a shelf, so to speak. So we're different because we will support you through every step of your claim. We understand that there's been a massive impact on you following an accident. But there's more to a claim than just being involved in the legality of it. There's rehabilitation, there's return to work, there's making sure that the insurance companies held accountable for what they're meant to do. So we wrap all of that up to make sure that it's a complete package for everybody. And look, particularly with cyclists involved with Bicycle New South Wales, it's this overall approach that recently won us Boutique Law Firm of the Year. So we think it's different. We think it's our competitive advantage, and we certainly think that our clients benefit from it.
Great, thank you, and massive congratulations on those recent accolades. It's really, really well deserved. From time to time, we'll either witness or be involved directly or indirectly in an accident of some type. What should we do?
Look, I mean, obviously it depends on to the extent to which you've been injured or if you've witnessed the accident. The first and foremost is, make sure that you're not going to be harmed further. A lot of times people will get hit by a car and then they need to be concerned about what's happening with ensuing traffic. Remember, not all the time you will have actually been seen by traffic coming in the other direction or something like that. So first and foremost, you need to make sure that the accident scene is secure. Make sure no one else is going to get hurt, and only then worry about calling emergency services and clearing the road, so to speak, for property damage. So first and foremost, being a cyclist, you don't have the protection of a car. There's a good or a motor vehicle. There's a good chance that you've actually been maybe catapulted down the road, or you've gone over the top of a vehicle. It's actually quite important you preserve yourself before worrying about any of the sort of legalities behind it. Whether you're a witness or whether you are the person that's injured, if you're capable of helping out or if you're capable of doing it yourself, make sure you exchange all of the details of the people involved in the accident at the scene. There's a misconception that the police will always share that information with you. Sometimes they will, but it's getting a lot harder because of privacy involved. Even legal representatives these days have to make full-blown applications through what used to be the privacy laws. So getting all of that information at the scene is critical. That would include full names and addresses, phone numbers, registration details, the details of the car, the time of the accident, the property damage, and the CTP insurer. So there's quite a lot that you actually want to make sure that you've obtained. Like I said, freedom. I think I said previously that it was privacy laws, freedom of information. In order to obtain that information, it's actually quite a lengthy process, and you've got some hard time frames in order to get this information into a claim, which I'll discuss again in a second. So if an injury has occurred, the police actually make it quite difficult sometimes to report an accident, but you have an obligation under motor accident law to make sure that it's been reported to the police within 28 days. So it may actually take a couple of attempts, depending how injured you've been. A lot of the time the police would like to be able to take all of the minor accidents, but it's a lot of the time the resourcing that's available to the police to do so is not not always capable of doing it. So, but if you intend on making a claim for injury at some point, you have an obligation to report that to the police within 28 days. If you don't do that, then the insurance company is going to want to know why, and you'll have to give an explanation as to why you didn't do it and things like that. So perseverance is the key with that. When you're actually at the accident scene, witness accounts are great, but at the end of the day, if you've got photos or a video of the accident scene, that's so much more useful to you, because that's contemporaneous evidence, and it shows us things like signage, traffic signals, whether there were pedestrian crossings, street lights, and it's showing us in real time, as opposed to having to reconstruct what had occurred after the event, sometimes years after the event. So any contemporaneous evidence that you can obtain, that would include witnesses, witness details, anything along those lines, making sure that you exchange information with, if you're not the person that was actually hit, but you were a witness, make sure the person actually has your information so they know how to contact you. They've actually just been involved in a tremendously traumatic event in their life. There's a good chance that they may have been knocked out or even been concussed. So making sure that you get your details to them so that you can help out if you've actually seen what occurred in the accident. So a lot of the time, cycling accidents, there's different versions of events. There may not be recordings available, so it comes down to witnesses. So that information can be very, very helpful as well. And look, at the end of the day, when you get to a point where you don't know what to do, or you've even got all of this information, we again more than happy to help out if anyone needs to know what they need to do.
Yeah, thanks, Leigh. And I was certainly, those that do witness accidents, I was helped out quite significantly. A number of years ago, when I had an accident, a witness approached me and gave me her contact details as she directly witnessed the whole incident. At the time, I didn't have a chance to thank her, but I needed to contact her because I really needed her help later on down the track. And I'm so thankful that she was a good Samaritan at the time, because without her version of events, it would almost certainly have been unsuccessful to cover some of the costs that I had at the time. So if we can do that as witnesses, it really does help out those people in need.
Yes, and look, I think one of the other things that you should keep in mind if you were a witness is that your memory will fade over time, and sometimes witnesses might be called to give evidence at a later date, or they'll be asked to put on a statement of evidence, in support of a particular person. So what I'd recommend you do is either, write down some notes and just to make sure that you've actually kept the majority of the details current. Because if you've seen an accident and 2 years later you've been asked to come back and recall what you saw, without your notes, a lot of the time it's going to be quite difficult to remember the specific details. So the more you can write down at the time of the event, the better. It will, even if you don't need it, but sometimes it may be very useful to call upon in the future.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point as well. You mentioned the 28 days of timing to report an incident occurring to the police, Leigh, but what about other limitations in terms of statutes of limitations and other timelines in making a claim?
Yeah, look, I suppose at this point I should probably say that for motor vehicle accidents, so you've got 28 days to report to the police. Now, when you're lodging a motor accident claim in New South Wales, you've got 28 days to lodge the claim, and if you do, you'll receive a back payment of wages to the date of the accident. Now, in the event that you miss that 28-day time frame, you've still got up to 3 months to lodge the claim without any issues, but the insurance company doesn't have to back pay you your wages. So ultimately, they will only start paying you from the time that you lodge the claim. So it's in your interest to act promptly if you can. Now, again, in the event that you are not conscious or someone else if in the event that you're not conscious, someone else can do it for you if you're hospitalized or things along those lines. So again, keep in mind, it doesn't necessarily need to be you that does it in circumstances of a traumatic injury. So that's they're the key ones. Over and above that, we've got a 3-year limitation to actually lodge matters in either the Personal Injury Commission or court. Now, that's actually to commence proceedings. Not all claims will need to go that far, but it is definitely sort of a drop-dead date that you do need to keep in mind. So when we move on then so some bicycle accidents will occur in the course of employment. Now, there you're going to have concurrent rights between workers' comp and CTP. So just to call out a few, if you were actually travelling in the course of employment, and this is, your workday has started. It's not to or from work. It's your workday has started, and you're actually riding, maybe during your lunch hour, or for going from one office to the other is probably a better example. So the key things to remember with an employer, you need to inform your employer as soon as you can, because they've got an obligation to alert their workers' comp insurer that an accident has occurred. Most claims need to be lodged with the employer within 6 months. However, that timeframe can be extended if you have a reasonable cause for the delay. Like motor accidents, you do have a 3-year limitation as well. So again, in commencing proceedings. So it's definitely worthwhile, being alert to those things. It's basically, if an accident occurs, act promptly across all personal injury schemes, because if you don't, you're likely to lose out on some benefits. That's probably the key message.
Excellent. Thanks, Leigh. And I guess with all your years of experience in the field and representing clients, what are some of the common mistakes that you see people make after an accident occurs?
Look, first and foremost, what you have is a statutory compensation scheme, and you have an insurance company that has in-house lawyers. So the fact that people think that they don't need to seek legal advice always astonishes me. There's a misconception that if an insurer is paying you, that you're receiving everything you're entitled to, and that simply it's just not accurate. The other misconception is that if an insurer makes a decision on your claim, that they've got it right. Again, there are so many decisions that are overturned on a regular basis. That's why we have an internal review process. That's why we have a personal injury commission and a court. It's because people have been aggrieved by the decisions that have been made by insurance companies. So I can't speak for all lawyers, but we hold the insurer accountable for their decisions. So we will talk you through the process to make sure that you understand what's going on and make sure that you receive what you're entitled to. And that's the benefit of having a lawyer and why you receive legal advice. I think another misconception is that you can do it yourself. So I sort of touched on this a moment ago, but an insurance company has teams of people established for the sole purpose of keeping you as a direct, what they call a direct claimant, so keeping you away from lawyers. This is because a lawyer will inform an injured person of their rights and actually negotiate the full entitlement that they're entitled to. It's not uncommon for our team to achieve a compensation result 3 to 10 times what an insurer has offered an injured person direct. And that can be to the tune of 10, 20, but even hundreds of thousands of dollars. It can be very, very substantial. And it's not through anything other than just leaving no stone unturned and making sure that an injured person actually gets what they're entitled to. So just remember that an insurance company is a business. It's their job to limit what is paid out in order to maximize their profits, because a lot of them are publicly listed entities. It's their job to actually make sure that their shareholders are receiving a return on their investment. So I suppose another one is that I've returned to work and I've got no entitlement. So we hear that one an awful lot. So it's, in fact, we actually hear it about from lawyers as well. It's just not right. So if people return to work, but quite often act in a significantly reduced capacity, they might lose bonuses, promotions, commissions, or even their intended career path. So they may be able to stay in their current job, but they're never going to like achieve the penultimate path that they would have actually taken but for the accident. So this is where having the right lawyer makes a difference, because if your lawyer spends time getting to know you and understands your personal circumstances, then that will drastically impact your claim. But if you have a cookie cutter approach to claims and you know, just glaze over what's happening to someone, you know, you'll inevitably miss out on quite a lot. So most people will have more entitlements than what they realise, especially when they've returned to work. So that's definitely a misconception. I think probably the last one I'd say is that lawyers are so expensive, and because I'm injured, I can't afford it. Look, in many circumstances, lawyers will have their fees paid for by the insurance company or by a government entity known as IRO. So you're actually not out of pocket at all in quite a number of circumstances in both workers' compensation and motor accidents. If legal fees are payable by you as part of a claim, you'd only be liable for the difference between what the insurer or IRO pay and the difference between their fees and what the total fees are. So most personal injury law firms, but Advantage Legal in particular, offer no win, no fee billing. So in order to help you while you're injured, ultimately you don't have to pay anything on an interim basis, and you only pay the account if you win at the end. So again, there's a lot of benefits in hiring a lawyer to make sure that you maximize what your entitlements are, but also making sure that you know, you're understanding the entire process. It's not straightforward. One of the things that we offer for Bicycle New South Wales members is 5% off their accidents fees, and that's a benefit of being you know, Advantage Legal and Bicycle New South Wales. So and we're happy to extend that to any member.
Excellent, thanks, Leigh. And I guess more broadly, what are some of the common misconceptions that you hear in the industry around covers, claims, and accident compensation?
I think one of them is that you can only lodge one claim. Now, that's a bit of a misconception, because there's a you know, society thinks that you can only lodge one claim because you can't double dip. Now, that's not the case. Many compensation schemes are designed by nature to overlap. So, for example, if you were injured in the course of work under, you know, riding a bike, and you would have rights under both workers' comp and CTP. So you would lodge a workers' compensation claim and a CTP claim concurrently, and ultimately you would initially be paid under the workers' compensation scheme, but you may be able to bring a damages claim under the CTP scheme later on. There may also be a public liability element, you know, depending on the circumstances of the accident. And then separately to all of that, you may have a TPD entitlement under your through your superannuation. So again, it's not double dipping. There are just multiple entitlements or multiple claims that need to be lodged in order to actually fully receive your entitlement, because different schemes are set up for different purposes. So the other thing to keep in mind is that not everyone only has one TPD policy. Many people have got multiple insurance companies with large balances in them. So you may actually have more than one TPD claim that you can pursue coming out of an accident. So that'd be one of the big ones in terms of misconceptions. The other one we hear a lot is, I don't want to sue my employer for workers' compensation. This is always a difficult one because people have got relationships with their employer, and they don't want to increase their premiums and things like that. But the fact is that your workers' comp, your employer has paid workers' comp. They're required to inform the insurer of an incident within 48 hours of being notified. So people who fail to lodge workers' compensation claims actually end up having a poorer recovery. So, and almost everybody we've spoken to that didn't lodge a workers' compensation claim because of they had a good relationship with their employer, that relationship ultimately breaks down and they always regret not pursuing the claim. So it's always our recommendation to lodge the claim. Obviously, you're going to take your own personal circumstances into account, but what you need to keep in mind is that workers' compensation in particular is not just all about work, like the money aspect of it, right? They provide rehabilitation, treatment. In certain circumstances, there's home care. So, to get the best possible recovery outcome, you actually want to lodge a workers' compensation claim so you can get on with your job and with your life. If you don't, quite often the ramifications are, you're the one that suffers. So I'd say they're the main two, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Leigh. And so Bicycle New South Wales, as most of our members already know, offer an excellent coverage as being part of a member of Bicycle New South Wales. So we, as being a member, offer additional on top of Medicare covered expenses to cover healthcare and treatment, income protection, rehabilitation costs and care benefits, and also additional benefits for permanent and partial impairment issues as well. These coverages are all Australia-wide and international as well, although there is an exception with the public liability cover, which doesn't include America and Canada. We provide $20 million for public liability coverage, including legal costs, and that covers obviously not when people injure another person or some property as well. And most people probably don't realise that they're not actually covered for this when they're out riding their bicycle. So it's an important note to make. But of course, for all of our details and exclusions and conditions with that insurance, please take a look at the Bicycle New South Wales website, where it's got all of that in all of its detail under the policy covers under bicycleNSW.org.au. But Leigh, how have you seen these insurances and CTP and workers' comp protect and help people when they've been involved in an accident?
Look, motor accident and workers' compensation laws vary quite considerably from state to state throughout Australia. That means that ultimately the entitlements and how the schemes operate also differ vastly. So usually depending as well on where the accident has occurred, that's usually the circumstance. So I think with Bicycle New South Wales coverage, like you said, you've got a worldwide coverage here with a few exclusions, and that's covered by an insurance contract, meaning that you've ultimately got the same coverage anywhere in the world if the accident happens. So number one, you haven't got this complexity of around how, what insurer do I need to lodge with? How am I going to be paid? All these things. It's all based on one document. So, and you'll have one insurer that you deal with. So that's always very, a helpful starting point. There are also circumstances where a motor accident or workers' compensation legislation don't apply, and where the Bicycle New South Wales policy could respond. So, for example, if you're in a car accident if you're involved in a bicycle accident only involving yourself, and you were not travelling, in the course of employment or travelling for work. So imagine a circumstance where you hit something and went off road. and on a bike ride and you were injured. So you're not on a public road, say mountain biking or something along those lines. You're effectively off-road. So there's no other vehicle involved. It's got nothing to do with work. Well, all of a sudden, there's no statutory compensation scheme that's covering you. And so there's a good chance that you've got no coverage. The Bicycle New South Wales policy fills those gaps. So, giving you that additional coverage. So to me, a lot of people think that, we pay for, workers' comp, or we pay for C2P. I'm covered, but particularly for people in the bicycle world, this coverage goes beyond that, so that you've got the opportunity to be at circumstances where those don't respond.
Right, thank you. That's it's always useful, and we're always reviewing our coverage each and every year, Leigh, to make sure it's relevant and up to date, and provides some of the best and highest coverage you can get in Australia. But it's always good to know if you're travelling overseas, which many people enjoy, particularly with bicycle tourism that's taking off, that they also enjoy that coverage when they travel. That brings us to the end of our questions, and we've actually got a couple of questions from participants on the webinar, which is always fantastic to see. Wendy asks, did Leigh say that his firm, Advantage Legal, only works with the injured?
Yes, we do. So we've had a history of working both for insurance companies, in insurance companies, and now we only work with injured people. So yes, what you call a plaintiff law firm.
Fantastic. That's good to clarify. And Erica also has a question. You mentioned, Leigh, once a CTP claim has been made, wages are back paid. How does this work for self-employed people?
So a lot of the time, the insurance company ultimately will look at the extent of what you have earned. In the case of an employed person, they call for 12 months worth of pay slips. Self-employed is a little bit tricky, but they do look for some kind of verifiable evidence of what you have earned. And they do need to look at the difference between what you earned as a company versus what you've actually paid yourself. So it does get down to the nitty-gritty of your personal circumstances, unfortunately, on that question, but they will look at things like bank statements. They'll look at if you've done BAS for a period of time. If the accident occurs around the end of the financial year, they'll take your last tax return. So again, different circumstances, they will look at different evidence. There's no hard and fast rule for self-employed people. They actually, if they can't piece it together, will actually engage a forensic accountant to work out ultimately what your wage loss is. When they go through that process, it does take a little bit longer. All the more reason for you to actually get it lodged within the 28-day period, because if you don't, it may take them another month or 6 weeks to actually get you paid, and then all of a sudden you've got no income for 2 months. So again, promptness is certainly a key measure here.
So I'll go to one of our emailed questions now, and then take another one from the existing audience. The minimum passing distance laws, what are they in New South Wales?
So with cyclists, you've got if a car is travelling 60 kilometres an hour or under, they're allowed to be within a metre of you. If they're travelling over 60 kilometres an hour, the car's actually meant to be 1.5 metres away from you. And this actually is a large cause of accidents, people being too fast, spooking people, or even the wind that sort of sucks you in as a car passes you. It's even worse with trucks I've seen some horrific accidents involving semi-trailers that were simply too close to cyclists. Unfortunately, they almost always end in fatalities when that occurs. So, yeah, look, the minimum passing laws were a very good initiative. However, I do think that there's still a large amount of education that needs to go in society about them. People simply just don't know them. So, I mean, I myself, if I'm having a moment, will always just make sure that I'm, a couple of meters away. And if you can't change lanes in order to do it, when you're going around a cyclist, you just have to wait. The key is patience. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really not that difficult. Everybody in Sydney is always in such a hurry, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to kill or maim somebody, is it really worth it? Just slow down. So, yeah. So again, just to sort of repeat, it's a meter if you're under 60, traveling under 60 kilometers an hour in a car, or 1.5 if you're traveling over 60.
Yeah, wow. Could not agree with that any bit more, actually. Thank you for that, Leigh. And that really is, it was something just over 60 years ago, Bicycle New South Wales was involved in advocating for in New South Wales, because now it's the law in a number of states around Australia and territories. Yes. And we have been getting a lot of feedback from members on this very issue, each and every week, in fact, and something we're talking about at our subcommittee of the board, the advocacy committee. And something we're looking to formulate a much stronger response to government to increase that education and awareness and enforcement on that, because it is a really, really major issue. Back to the questions, though, from the audience at the moment. I might leave that one to the end as we wrap up. But Wendy also asked, as far as being this is a good question, as far as being a self-funded retiree and being injured, how does compensation get worked out?
So when it comes down to income loss, with what we call statutory benefits, so I'm talking within the CPP scheme here, so motor accidents, they calculate it basically up until retirement age. Now, if you have an entitlement to damages beyond that time, and you can show that you were what you were still producing income in order to, and that income has been disrupted. So in other words, it's got to be something that was requiring your personal exertion. You may be able to claim there. Now, in the event that you are like in a share market or something like that, and the money that you are earning is still going up and down irrespective of your injury, then there's not really a claim in that respect, unless it was you personally looking after it and you're no longer able to do it. So it comes down to that personal exertion factor. But yeah, look, again, that really comes down to the individual circumstances. You definitely do want to have a look at it, though. I would never say to anyone ever, you've got no entitlement to an economic loss claim, which is what we're talking about here, without looking at it on the personal circumstances, because 9 out of 10 times we can find something that where an accident has impacted somebody in some shape or form with their economic loss. Now, once you pass retirement age, that's probably more of a general, there's less likely that you can bring such a claim, but we'd always look at it to make sure that you've left nothing, on the table, so to speak. The treatment and the care entitlements, they are the same. They wouldn't change. So if you needed that assistance, to get back on your feet, it's available to you.
Thanks, Leigh. A question from Michael. My wife is currently receiving assistance through CTP as a result of an accident. She was knocked off her bike by a car. She's about 3 months into her recovery. At what time should we get lawyers involved, as her recovery is likely to be longer than 24 months?
Look, in my view, you should get a lawyer involved straight after an accident in all circumstances. And I only say that because at the end of the day, the initial consultation is usually free. If you don't like the advice, you don't have to go ahead. But at the end of the day, the longer you leave it, the more time you are spending with an insurance company, and for the reasons that I said previously, they're interested in minimizing a claim. So the longer you spend in that process, the more, I suppose, ammunition you're giving them in order to do that. Whereas a lawyer will make sure that what you're putting before them is relevant, is in the best interest of your claim, and making sure that, ultimately that your wife in these circumstances are the one who is benefiting, because the system is there to benefit you, not the insurance company. And that's what people need to remember. People get sucked into the fact that an insurer is being nice, or they're paying me my benefits. Well, they might be, but you don't necessarily know what you're doing to the detriment of a further claim. So if your wife's recovery is likely to be more than 24 months, there may be a subsequent claim that she is entitled to pursue. So there are two claims under CTP. One is known as the application for personal injury benefits, and the second one is it's a fault-based scheme where it's where you get a lump sum payout, and that is the common law damages claim. And so again, you would definitely want a lawyer for that second claim, because that's where the insurer is likely to try to reduce the claim as much as possible. So yeah, look, definitely, I would say to you as soon as possible.
Thanks, Leigh. So Andrew, definitely get in touch with Advantage Legal on the link on our website, or reach out directly to Advantage Legal on their website as well. A great question from John. Are you fully covered if the accident is your fault?
So under CTP, you have 6 months worth of benefits. That will give you, again, assuming you lodge the claim on time, you will have wage loss, treatment and home care available to you. If you're at fault though, you are not entitled to bring the second claim that I just mentioned, the common law damages case, because that is a fault-based scheme. However, what people's perception of who is at fault is not necessarily how it works. There is a concept called contributory negligence. So you might be found to have contributed to the accident, but not be entirely at fault. So it's always worthwhile having a chat to see if that applies to you. The other concept is that there are occasions, New South Wales in particular has a concept called a no-fault accident, or it used to be called a blameless accident. This is set up in circumstances where somebody's had, well, it was originally set up, some of you might be familiar with Sophie D'Alicio. So it was set up off the back of her accident that occurred many years ago, and ultimately where somebody had a heart attack and negligence couldn't be proven because the person just had a heart attack and died, I think, from memory. So Sophie actually couldn't bring an at-fault claim legally under the CTP scheme. So they amended the law to say, well, if that kind of situation happens, you'd be covered if you were Sophie in that scenario. Now, that through interpretation of courts has been expanded a little bit over time. I think from memory, blameless accidents came in 2006 and 2007. We've had legislation change since then in 2017, but that concept is carried across. It's got a different name, but it's carried across. So again, there's this other element of no fault, which can apply to people. And it applies in circumstances where, like, animals may hit a car and you don't own the car. So there are other circumstances where, again, people wouldn't be aware that this is a possibility. And this is why I say it's always good to have a chat with a lawyer, because the worst you can be told is no, we can't help you. And initial consult's free. So again, having a chat with a lawyer is never going to be a bad thing, particularly at that initial advice stage.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Leigh. The last question to cover, and we'll wrap things up. I'll take this question from Michael. We are recording this, which we have been recording it, and we are going to be probably putting a couple of minor edits and distributing that far and wide, and we'll include that in our membership EDMs and subscriber newsletters, so that anyone that might have joined us late today or had other things on can see the recording. in full, which means no one will miss out on all of this wonderful information that we've all been absorbing. I've certainly learned a few things, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. So thank you so much, Leigh, for your time and contribution today. It's been absolutely very, very meaningful, and it's definitely equipped us all to be able to react better if we're potentially involved or even witness an accident, and support those our friends and family and whoever else it might be, potentially a complete stranger. So yeah, we really, really appreciate your time. There's a couple of other messages that have come in, but we are going to have to wrap things up. We are going to be holding some more webinars in the future, so we're keen to hear from you. Send us an email at info@bicyclenewsouthwales.org.au with any future ideas that you might have on a webinar. We can certainly do stage 2s and 3s of these types of insurance-related webinars as well, and delve into some of the details and specifics in a lot more. So always reach out and let us know what your opinions and feedback might be. And other than that, thank you for the audience for joining us today and spending your Monday lunch with us. We really, really appreciate your support and your membership. And thank you, Advantage Legal and Leigh Davidson, for all of your help as well.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
For now, though, thank you very much, everyone, and always ride safely.